Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you joined us today.
All right, y'all, come on. Let's get into it.
Hey, we're back.
Hey, everybody.
We are so excited to be with you today. And yes, how you feeling today, babe?
I'm feeling really good. You know, we're getting in our groove and flow and just trying to keep things rolling. But this topic came up that we're going to get into today just from some conversations I was having with, my coworkers and really just some of the things I reflect on. And so I think it'll be a good topic for us to have with all the people out there.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of surprised at how many conversations about money you end up having with coworkers. I'm real curious on if other industries, other people, at work talk about money the way that y'all do. Like that I find to be real interesting because I do wish that we talked about money more and we were more transparent. But I think that...
Well, not you and I. We talk about money a lot. But.
Yes, but I'm talking about in general, like we made it less taboo. And it sounds like you have a real healthy workplace dynamic where people are more open. And I don't know that that's normal.
Yeah, I don't know if it's normal, but I become like the resident, finance guy.
Oh my gosh, you're giving away a lot of advice for free. Let's be clear. Let's not be the coach in the workplace, okay?
Yeah, I know. That's your thing. I need to start, bringing you into the workplace.
I know. I'm like, wait a minute. Be like, you need to talk with my wife.
But it's just funny, and, what we're going to talk about today is, how do you find enough? And I think it's interesting, and I think it's the way it came about was, me and one of my coworkers were talking, and it was like, at what point is enough? Is how much do you need to save, or how much do you need to make, or, what do you need to do to be at a point where it's enough? And it makes you really start to think about it because, well, first of all, it tells you that, some of those conversations, people are in drastically different situations because when there's a situation where there's not enough, that is overtly clear.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't get to the point where they're asking themselves, what's enough? Most of the time, we're going from the level of, okay, just enough. We're like, okay, at least we have enough, right? Because there could be a point where you don't have enough to make your basic necessities. And then you're like, all right, I got enough on a daily basis. But then when we're talking about more than enough, and I think that that's really the linchpin right now is like, what is more than enough and how much does that account for?
I think the interesting thing is that you don't have to make a ton of money to accumulate enough for retirement that would be considered enough.
Yeah.
There's teachers, there's people who have everyday types of careers that become millionaires and they have enough to, live off of for the rest of their lives and by all accounts leave something to their, loved ones as far as an inheritance. But it was just interesting because I think this can apply to a number of different areas because it's not just money, but when you're working in corporate or you're working in your business, there's always that striving to get to the next level or working towards a promotion. And I think we were talking about some of all of that. Like, what point is enough? Like, do you got to get to, the VP or the senior VP or the, executive VP level or, it's all of those things because at some point, I'm a very ambitious guy. I've always been, about working hard and being smart and diligent to try and, prove my mettle. But you start to think like, well, geez, how high do I need to go? Because it's like the pyramid. The higher you get in the pyramid, the smaller the room to make error, but the wider the responsibility below you. And so it's always those things to think about. Well, how much responsibility do I want? How many people do I want? Or all those things. So it was an interesting dynamic
Yeah,
when we were talking about that.
I think that's really good to distinguish climbing the corporate ladder from the amount of money that would be considered enough for you. And I think a financial planner will help you decide how much is enough for retirement given how much you're spending right now. But I think a more well-rounded, holistic approach is definitely to ask yourself, how much of this ambition am I going to use to climb, to achieve, to, you know, put yourself to the test? And I think that that's a really good, important question. And I think that's interesting because as a business owner, I don't have the climb the ladder ambition. I have the reach that I am looking for, right? Like I want a reach. I want to be able to expand and touch many people without having the responsibility of 10 employees, for instance. Um, but so our ambition is a little bit different. I don't have the corporate ambition of climb, but I absolutely still have the ambition of impact, with the work that I do.
Or even grow.
Yeah.
You're trying to grow your business.
And not be stagnant. Ooh, that's
Yeah.
important.
Because when you think about how much is enough, you're talking about a number of different things. We've touched on, climbing a corporate ladder or growing your business if you're self-employed, if you're a small or medium-sized business. But then you also got to think about, income. How much income is enough? And people will say, well, no, it's never too much, Now, let's be clear. I'm not going to turn any money down. Okay.
Are you going to stop when you get to your enough number, honey?
If they still give me money, I'm still keep taking it. Okay. But, you start thinking about savings, income and savings and retirement funds and all of that. How much is enough? So I think you've got to think about it in all those contexts, because if you think about career-wise, you might be pushing yourself that you're burning the candle on both ends, and it may not be healthy for you, physically, or it may not be healthy for your relationship with your spouse. Because, here at the For Better and Work podcast, we talk about not only money, but we also talk about relationships.
Did you just put on your radio voice? Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was a good, that was an appropriate spot for it.
Here at the For Better and Work podcast. I love it.
But, you got to think about that, because if it's detrimental to your relationship, then is the income worth it?
Mm-hmm. And that's... Sorry, go ahead, babe.
If it's, let me back up. If it's detrimental to your health, is it worth it? I'm going to say right now, we haven't even got to make it worth it, but I'm going to say probably no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really good, though. I will say, in your career, I have seen you strive to get to certain annual income numbers. And I think you like the thrill of the hunt. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think for you, there's a certain level of satisfaction knowing you could. And sure, you have always pursued jobs where you feel like you would be fulfilled and that your skills and gifts would be utilized and that you would learn something new in the process. But I also think that you've always had a number in mind as well. You were never the type of person to say, I am out here just to figure out how to make the biggest impact I can make and not worry about the money. The money is very motivating for you.
I was in sales for a long time, and I am about my business. Okay. And so I think it's interesting that you see it that way, because I don't think I ever really thought about it that way. I was like, look, I'm going to go out here. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to get on the grind. And to me, I feel like I always chased success. And for me, success was the overarching thing that I was shooting for. And in chasing success, that umbrella of success, everything else came up under that: income and positions and this and that. I felt like that's what I was striving towards. And so it's always been a motivator. And being a husband and a father, I've had very traditional views of how to provide. So I was always driven by having, all these women in my house and in my life that I was like, well, I got to make sure everybody eats.
Mm-hmm.
And you've always been a contributor and a producer in that regard. But, it's always one of those things where, you just think about it like, well, I got to make sure we get it done. So,
Yeah, but you know what, honey? You don't just want to put food on the table. Let's be clear. Okay, our listeners already know we like travel, you like nice things, we like great experiences. You wanted a new house a little while ago. Like literally, let's be clear.
look,
Your bar for taking care of your family is not low.
I want to live my life to the fullest. Okay.
Right. And so I think that while that's great and all that you want to be the provider, I think that the real deal here is that you are money motivated. Like, and there's nothing wrong with
Oh,
that.
I'm definitely money motivated, and I think a lot of people are money motivated. But what I've come to realize in life is that it's not so much the money; it's what money allows you to do. And so it's those experiences, it's those, freedoms. And that's what it becomes more about for me is freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get freedom of choice. You can chase money and then money just rules you and that's all you focus on.
That part.
And I've never just chased money. I've chased freedom.
Mm.
I've chased experiences. I've chased flexibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really what's more important to me.
Mm.
And I think when you put it in its right context, that context is what will drive you to do what you do. I think underlying, you have to have some core things that just you don't sacrifice on. Like I've never been lazy. Got my first job when I was 14.
What was that first job,
I was
babe?
a dishwasher at a restaurant. And before that I had a paper route. So I've always been on the grind and hustled from the time I was a young kid up to now. But it was all about putting things in their proper context. And that's where I think people can go wrong. And so for people who are out there listening, don't just focus on going after the money. Do the things that are the right things for the right reasons. Have ambition, have drive, have motivation, and the money will come.
And I would add the right reasons for you, not the right reasons for someone else. We're not trying to reach a certain level to impress anybody. This is the right thing for you and your family. The other thing that I notice about a lot of people is that chasing money, income wise, is a moving target. Like you can get to one level and then you're like, all right, well, I did that. So now what's the next thing? Right. And oh, I did that. So now what's the next thing? And so it's just it's a moving target. It's like, chasing your tail. Like if you keep running, you're gonna continue to chase, right? And so I think money is really not the thing to chase, satisfaction and purpose, you know, um, up leveling your skill set, making sure you're making a difference in some way, that you believe in what it is you're doing. I
Yeah,
think that's important.
yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And here's the thing: I think the conversation started just because it's like in your career, you reach certain levels, you reach certain income milestones, and then you start to assess. And one of my big words is perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always try and take a moment and step back and say, okay, well, why am I doing this? Or why am I, seeking this next thing or this next opportunity? And over my career, as I've led different people and I've mentored people, I've always said, hey, you need to be shooting for, two positions ahead, because whatever is next is going to prepare you for the position that's after that. And so it was about building skills. It was about getting additional qualifications and things of that nature. But I also feel as though in my own life, I've tried to say, well, what's going to make me happy? What's going to allow me to do the things that I want to do? And true, the income target can become a moving target, but I think anyone who has high drive or aspiration or motivation, that target almost should be moving because it helps you continue to level up. It continues to push you to strive. And sometimes you have to push yourself beyond your set limitation.
Mm.
And income can be a driver, but I know people who they say they want to get to a certain income, but they don't want to do what's required or necessary to get to that income because a lot of the times it involves sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't want to make the sacrifice to get the outcome.
Yeah, that's really good. As you're talking, I was thinking about my first 12 years in business. I was really trying to increase my client load and be able to say that I was full time in the work that I was doing. And I definitely was, full time, but was I making the type of full time income that I wanted to make, And that was a thing I was striving for. And it was a part of a time where there were lots of ups and downs, right? There was lots of uncertainty. You start off in the first year, you practically make nothing, right? And then you try some things, and those things are not what you want to do. And so I think there was a lot of stumbling forward in those early years. And the thing that I learned, a big, huge thing that I learned when I had one of my coaches, I've had several different business coaches, and one of them in particular said, Ericka, you're really good at budgeting and figuring out how to make a dollar stretch. She said, but what is your dream budget? And that was the first time that I had to take a step back and say, hey, what's possible if I really shift the way I'm doing business to be able to up level. And so that I became serious about a lot of those things. And so that's when I wrote the book. That's when I started doing workshops and speaking to people because I didn't want to remain stagnant. Though I feel like I probably was stagnant for about 10 years. I had gotten complacent. That was a word I realized later on that I had really gotten complacent. And I think it's easy to do when you work for yourself. But I believe that a coach actually helped shake me up out of that a little bit and help me to see things a little bit differently. And now, just in the last 5 to 6 years, I feel like the things that I'm striving for, I wouldn't have fathomed. 10 years ago, I would not have fathomed the things that I'm out here doing now.
Look, sometimes you need that intervention in a sense to shake you up. But you had motivation, but I think maybe you just became stagnant a little bit, but then you got a chance to reset.
Mm-hmm.
And I think before we get too deep into this conversation, I think people need to understand, we talk about enough, there's different things you have to consider. And financially, when we talk about enough, you need to have, 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up. And for me, I'm trying to push that more to the 12-month of expenses. But you got to, crawl before you walk, people.
Mm-hmm.
So get, just start moving forward, get that first 3 months and then get that next 3 months. So you got 6 months. And if you desire to go beyond that, I say it's okay because you never know. We live in a crazy time, crazy world. So having, 9 to 12 months of expenses, that's not a bad idea.
It's not bad. I will say, I feel like that is an area where enough is relative because it really does depend on what your household expenses are. And I think that there is a minimum number. Like literally, I think we would be remiss if we didn't say that it's probably not responsible, healthy, or safe. That might be the real word. Secure to have less than 3 months of your actual household expenses and savings. And I know that when you're getting out of debt, we didn't have it. When we were getting out of debt, we did not have 3 months of expenses saved. But as soon as we got out of debt, that was our first goal. And I think that, to be clear, that is enough at the stage of life where you needed to be. As business owners, as a person who, our expenses are a little bit wider. We've got young people that, if something happens, like things are affected. And so you do want more. And really, like you said, in this climate, you probably do need more. But I think that enough starts at 3 months. And I think that is, it's a calculation that a lot of people need to do. They need to look at how much it takes to run their household, multiply it by 3, and it's at minimum that.
Right. That's good advice. That's good advice. I always push the envelope.
I know you do.
I try to go above and beyond, but that's good advice that you're giving there. And you got to think about what your lifestyle is, and that 3 months, is it on the high side or the low side? It really needs to be the minimum required, to live at the level where nothing would change for the most part. Maybe you had to cut your cable back, but you really have to think about the lifestyle that you want to live. And I think when you go beyond just the 3 to 6 months and the income and retirement comes down to really how you want to live when you retire. What's needs that you have, and what are experiences or indulgences that you want to have in retirement, because you need to plan for that stuff, because if you don't plan for it, it's not just gonna happen.
And I think, again, that distinction is the reason we even have to define an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses, is because when you get to that number, you need to take the dollars you were putting towards savings and put it towards retirement dollars, right? Like, you probably won't you won't save all the money towards retirement. So that's not what we're saying. But when you don't have debt and you have an emergency fund that you're comfortable with, that's enough for you. You can now use the dollars you were using for those two activities to put it towards your retirement. So it leaves no excuse for why these things can't progress in your life, why you can't move to the next level, right? Why you can't save money to purchase a home, or, to do the things that you need to do. If you're out of debt and you've got an emergency fund, now you have freed up dollars. And that's what gets me really excited when I talk to people is, when you add up where you are right now in terms of your expenses and the stuff that you can move out of the way, you can, pay that debt off in a certain amount of time, and you can build up that emergency fund in a certain amount of time. And then you're like, well, now what? Now you can create the future that you really want. And not just lifestyle. Like, it's not just let's go on a vacation now all the time. It's let's go on a vacation and also let's plan for the future. And I think people feel like in the heat of the moment that it's hard to do. It really simply just takes time. And if you give yourself some time and some patience, you can get to where you need to be.
That sounds like some of the fundamentals that you teach people and educate them on as far as what they should do. And I know mine is more, just the way I choose to move through life and the way I choose to do things. And people can adopt it, or, you got to do what works for you. So what would you say is enough tied to for you?
Well, in business, it's the impact that I can make. It's how many people I can reach. It's how many, companies I can work with and individuals I can touch. Like, that's part of it. I think that now some of that is changing. I think finally in this new phase or this new chapter of, workplace financial wellness, I'm like, let's get some big contracts in here. Let's do some stuff. Let's make an impact. I want to be like, part of, the fabric of the company, honestly. And so I'm looking for those types of opportunities as well. And so I feel like for me, that is, I'm still striving. I feel like, where you were probably a few years back is where I am right now. It's like I've found a groove of pushing myself to do bigger and better things and to get bigger contracts, because it means bigger impact. So for me, that's what that means. And honestly, I feel like I'm still working that out. Like, I think it's exciting, it's scary, and it's, a vulnerable place to be, but it's really cool when, the things happen, the contracts are signed, and I'm able to, move forward in those things and fulfill on what it is I'm here to do. And so I don't have enough yet. How about that? I just have to put it
No,
out there. It's not enough yet. How about that?
there's nothing wrong with that. And like I said earlier, I think you're getting into that growth, that continued growth mindset where you want to try and push yourself, you want to try and exceed your previous levels, because in a one-on-one coaching environment, I mean, you crushed that for years and you reached kind of the top of that mountain, and now you're on another mountain that you're trying to grow and conquer and climb. So I expect that you wouldn't be kind of at the enough when you talk about your business, but you've grown in so many ways that I think all you can do is go up. So excited to see what comes of it.
Let's go. Let's go. So, do you feel like when you were coming up, y'all had enough?
Look, I think everybody's heard my story, and we had just enough. We barely had it. But I say we had enough in that my mom made sure the basic necessities were always met. There were times that we had to go without some things, and there were some struggles along the way, but we always had clean clothes, we always had food, we always had some place that was safe to live. My mom didn't drive for a lot of years, so transportation, that was interesting because we caught the bus a lot, but I feel like from a basic perspective, she made sure that we had those fundamental things. And in a lot of ways, that is enough, because a lot of people today can't even say they have those basics met. They don't always have what they need from, clothing, having clothing or food security or, home, a place to lay down that you can be safe in and you can, bathe and shower, because there's a lot of people who don't have that. And so I was very thankful that though we didn't have everything that we wanted, she was able on a basic level to meet a lot of the needs that we had. And so in that regard, I say yes, because like I said, it's all about perspective. Could it have been better? Sure. Could it have been more? Sure. But then, I look at the life that we've been able to create. It's like we've got all the stuff we need plus, most of the stuff we want over our 25 years. And so it's just looking at it from two very different lenses.
Yeah. When I think about my upbringing, my mother never showed me that sometimes it wasn't enough, right? So we definitely had those moments, but she didn't want me to see it. See, I feel like you had a much more clear awareness of it. And in my house, my mother didn't want me to see that. She tried to mask it and cover it up. And I think a lot of parents do that. I think a lot of parents feel like they don't want their kids to know when times are tough. They don't want to share the struggle. They feel as if, and I've heard some of my clients even say this, that, I don't want my kid to think that things are unstable and I have to be able to make it work in front of them. And while I get where that comes from, I don't think that it is harmful to be truthful when things aren't 100% going the way you want them to, or when you fall on hard times, when somebody loses a job, when you have to use, a credit card to get your car repairs because you don't have an emergency fund. That is a life lesson. That is something that you can say to your kids, hey, listen, this isn't ideal, and I'm just going to tell you right now, this isn't ideal. What I would love for you to be able to have the opportunity to do is pay for this in cash because credit cards are expensive. Like, that is just a teaching moment. And I think we want to allow our kids to think that we're perfect in some of these areas when we know for a fact we're not.
I think you're going to get two types of parents. I think you're going to get the ones that are transparent, that are sharing the struggle so kids understand and know, and the ones that are very private. And I think your mom is of the very private side, and my mom was of the side that, she wasn't fully transparent, but she was a lot more transparent, because she'd be like, no, we can't do that, or no, this is what's happening. And I would see her balancing her checkbook and, using an envelope to, that was how she wrote her bills out, and she calculated, and she had several envelopes that she had written down on. But she would just be a little more clear, and she would set limitations with us. Like, no, you can't get this, or yeah, you can't get that. Even when she took us clothing shopping, she was like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to do this over here. And so I had to respect it. And it just taught me to, go out and hustle and grind and get a job earlier and, to get those kicks that I wanted or something like that. So, but, I think it was good. It was good for me in both ways. So,
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't have the language to make it an okay conversation when you're already stressed, right? And so I think that's my hope with our podcast and just being able to make talking about money normal. That's what I think is important. So I got a question for you, babe. So I know you're ambitious. Are you satisfied with your income, with your retirement assets, just at this point in life? Do you feel like you have enough today?
I feel like this is a loaded question.
Is it? Oh my gosh. Come on
I
now.
feel like she's trying to set me
No,
up on the
I am not.
podcast.
I have this honest, pure heart.
Sitting here with these pretty eyes like, do you have enough, babe?
Come on
Are
now.
you happy?
Come on now. Just
I'll
answer the
say
question.
I'll say this. We've been very blessed. And I know that God is going to continue to bless us. And so with that in mind, I'm open to all the Lord wants to do.
Oh, wait.
On my behalf.
You don't have enough blessings yet. That's what I heard you say.
Nope,
Translation.
That's not
Translation.
what I said. I'm just open to what the Lord is looking to do in my life. Lord, move how you want to move. Do what you want to do.
Are you about to take up an offering plate?
But, on a serious note, I think I've always been a driven guy. I work really hard. I try to give, my all. And for that, I think, I should be paid. I should be compensated well. And, I know people who make more. I know people who make less. And so I always feel like, put me where I need to be. And so I work to try and make sure I validate what I do get paid and, how I should be, compensated overall. And so I'm choosing to work and continue to work for, however long I'm going to work. So I think, there's only more room to grow.
So what I'm hearing you say is no, it's not enough. Like let's be clear. How many words was that, Christopher Young? Like, how many words did it take you to answer my simple question? Are you satisfied today?
Well, satisfied, yes. But, I'm always striving for bigger and better and greater.
I think we all know the answer to his question.
So
I think we all
this
know.
was a setup, people.
You know what? And here's the thing. It is okay if you are not satisfied with where you are. It totally is fine.
I'm about to turn on my Rick Ross again. Every day I'm hustling.
And that is okay. I really believe that this is the way that God made you. Like, you can't sit still. And I think that there's something to be said for being content. But I also
Okay, hold on.
Uh-oh.
Hold on.
Uh-oh, he about to correct
Because you
something.
said two things.
Okay.
You said satisfied and content.
Okay.
And I don't think those are the same.
Talk
I
to
am
me.
very content
Yes.
with where I'm at. Because I think income and, retirement, I'm content. Am I satisfied? Maybe I'm not satisfied because I know I can still do more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I focus on, just continuing to do what I can to increase those, because all it does for me is continue to impact our legacy and, like we've said, our family tree long term. And it allows us to do more today to impact people around us and in the future. And so with that in mind, I just continue to try and, press on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm an ambitious guy. I try to just keep doing my thing, and I enjoy what I do, and I enjoy, when I'm giving my free financial advice at work, because I want to see other people win. And I don't want them to just be satisfied. They can be content, but don't be, satisfied and stagnant when you can push yourself or you can strive for more or for greater.
Yeah.
So
I love that. And I'm really glad that you made that distinction between being satisfied and being content, because there is a difference. There definitely is a difference. And I think for many years, I think we've flip-flopped a little bit, to be honest with you. I think that you have found a lot more satisfaction in the work that you're doing and in your income here recently, as well as contentment is something that you've always, you've had. You know what I mean? I think that there was a time when I was not really striving. I was trying to move up, if you will, in the way that that works in business, but I don't feel like I was ambitious like you were. Not that we were comparing one another, but I feel like I did not have the same type of ambition at all. And now I'm definitely hitting the pavement a whole lot more than I did before. So I have a greater understanding and appreciation for your drive, because I feel like I'm in that season right now. I definitely am in that season right now. And it's fun. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of fun. So I think that that's it. Like I said, it's okay to not necessarily be satisfied, because that makes you, put some fire under your tush to go get it. Go get after it.
look, so let's talk about, make it worth it. And I think you have to make it worth it to, one, be content, but continue to drive yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So as you reach milestones, be content with that level that you've accomplished. But I think sometimes it does have to be a rolling, goal or objective, because, you can be content, but you can still be ambitious. You can still use your talents. You can still use your gifts. And I think that's how you make it worth it, is not being, slack or
Stagnant.
yeah, because we talked about it. Stagnation is, I think that's the counter agent to ambition or creativity or drive, or motivation. So I say the way you make it worth it is to stay ambitious. I say stay hungry. Feel like you're always not necessarily proving something to anyone, but prove it to yourself, because the bar that you set has to be the bar against you, driving you to do your best.
That's good. That's good. I would say you make it worth it by, one, being grateful for what you do have. Let's just, we didn't really touch on that, but I think that that's a really huge part of contentment. And then I also think, do your calculations. Like, listen, you'll never know what is enough if you don't do the calculations. So honestly, I feel like that's important for retirement dollars. It's also important for your emergency fund, like we mentioned. And really, when it comes to annual income, I mean, obviously that's a very personal thing, but it's okay to look at numbers. Like, that is really okay. And to figure out what enough looks like. And so, or what more than enough looks like. I think that that is a fair thing to calculate. So anyway, I'm really glad that, we had this conversation, because I feel like sometimes those coworkers, they put some ideas in our head that, could help those that are listening. So that was a cool little full circle moment.
Yeah, sometimes I talk them down off cliffs too. So, but we appreciate you guys tuning in, and until next time, we're out. Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up for our email on forbetterandworth.com.
Till next time, we're out of here.